welcome everyone. Welcome to Love Remembers. It's Tuesday. Hope you guys are having a decent day. I know it's hard to say. Me and Allison were just actually talking about. It's hard to say now. I mean, how are you doing? And it's hard to say I'm okay because in the thick of things, if you take a look at everything that's going around in the world, and especially things that we're covering, we're talking about pertaining to Donald Trump and everything else, you would think you're in some kind of sci-fi movie, maybe, or some bad dream, or whatever, and you want to wake up, but it's reality, and that's one of the things that journalists, independent journalists like Allison and others are sounding the alarms. That's why, we're hitting there, we're screaming to make sure, keep your eye on the ball, watch what's happening, because there's, Donald Trump and his administration are up to no good, a lot of things. And some of them are worse than others. And, that's some of the things that we're going to talk about. First of all, just catch up on some of the breaking news that's been happening today before we jump into it, Allison. Today, James Comer came out, Congressman James Comer, for those of you that don't know, he's the head of the Oversight Committee. He is also Donald Trump's henchman. And how do I know? Because I've testified in front of James Comer in the same Oversight Committee. He's the man that has led that sham charade of a impeachment type of trial against ex-president Biden, and it obviously failed. But he wasted years, millions of dollars, trying to chase some imaginary Burisma, or some imaginary connection between Ukraine and when the real crimes was right in front of his nose with Donald Trump and Kushner, and especially what's happening now. But so getting into it, he released a set of two different situations. One was put out a subpoena list that has to do with the hoax, as they call it, the Russiagate hoax. So let me just reframe. So what my sources are telling me and reporting, Allison, is that Comer and Trump had a long conversation a few days ago, and where basically the baton was passed now to the next stage, because they need to, have the base. Because he's not only selling this whole rewriting of the Epstein files to the world, he needs to sell it to his base, the mega cult that's cracking. And the plan that was hatched, that was put together, that contribute to already what Blanche and others, are formulating, what Maxwell and the story she's going to paint, is that he was going to, do these sham investigations and call out, subpoena these names. Like, he got Secretary Hillary Clinton, he subpoenaed for October 9th. He got former President Bill Clinton for October 14th. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland, October 2nd. Former FBI Director James Comey, October. I mean, and the list goes on. And this has to do strictly with the Russia hoax, the investigation that Pam Bondi now has put in front of the DOJ and the grand jury, and the proceedings that are going there. Simultaneously, though, what's even more crazier, because this is, a sham that they're trying to divert, but what they're really trying to do, and what you're dealing with, and that what I want to talk about today, is the scrubbing of the history when it comes to the Epstein files, the rewriting, the scrubbing of Donald Trump, the painting the story of others, slapping the victims and the survivors in the face by trying to really discard everything they're doing. And that's why here at Love Remembers, and I know you're doing it at Mueller Report and your other platforms, keeping the eye, the attention on all of this, because thank God that the media is also keeping the attention and not letting it go, because this is his kryptonite. And right before I hand it off to you, I just want to say he put out a subpoena today, and that's a schedule of subpoenas that he sent to Pam Bondi. And in that, also, Comer, part two of the plan, is now he's requesting documents. And the media today and the pundits were all over it, Allison. I was watching, saying, the GOP, Trump's GOP is going against him, James Comer. And I had to write a letter right away. Says, stop, hold on, don't go there. No way. James Comer will never do anything that will hurt Donald Trump. He will never put anything out there. Instead, they're formulating the story with the help of Todd Blanche, because in the set of documents, he talks about asking for, Epstein and Maxwell. And interestingly enough, he puts in there, he asked that all documents and communications between executive office of the president, including the executive office of President Joseph Biden Jr., Department of Justice during the Biden. Nothing here in all of this asks about Trump's relationship, Bill Barr, during the time that Bill Barr arrested actually Epstein and the DOJ under Donald Trump. None of that information. It's all about painting a narrative. And that's why I wrote in my letter today. And when you guys get a chance, make sure you read the Substack. It breaks it all down and tells it. But today, I know, long overdue, the introduction. We have a very special guest here, Allison Gill. A lot of you might know her from Miller She Wrote and some of her major, incredible podcasts, Webby-winning podcasts, as I might say. Allison is a veteran. She's also a whistleblower, and I'm proud to say a fellow whistleblower. Allison, I don't know if you know, I actually just won the Whistleblower Pillar Award, the 13th annual, a few days ago. I was in D.C. I received the so as another whistleblower, one to another. She's a PhD educated journalist. She's a comedian. She transferred from a federal government executive into a leading voice in progressive political media through her platform Mueller She Wrote and her network MSW Media. She breaks down complex legal politics news with wit, clarity, unwavering commitment to truth and accountability. And with that, I want to invite Allison. Gill, welcome, Allison. I know you have a lot going on. You have a lawsuit. I'm going to pass the baton to you now. From somebody that used to remember you how we started. You used to look into me. You were like, I was the bad guy, and now to have you here, it's an honor, Allison.
You were out there doing that shadow diplomacy, right? And
That's
the
right.
book. Yeah, we called you a member of the Ukraine clown posse, I think was what was the phrase that we had coined. But I want to talk to you before we get into the Epstein lawsuit. You brought up Jamie Comer, good old Jim Comer. And I just want to kind of remind everybody, first of all, Durham, appointed by Barr, looked into all this and found nothing. They're going to find nothing again. But they're looking for stuff about Biden. It's interesting that they put that in there. But I just want to kind of be clear that every single piece of evidence that Republicans have had against the Bidens and the Clintons and uh, Jim Comey and Brennan and all of these folks that they want to go after, every single piece of evidence they've had was manufactured by Russians. And you know this because we had the Rudy Shokin files, we had the Nunes Derkach files, we had Jim Comer and his star witness, Alexander Smirnov, who was pled guilty and is in prison for fabricating a Burisma bribe to the Bidens. I mean, the list goes on. And now we've got this new Durham Annex that wasn't published back in the day, that even Ratcliffe, who released this, said himself about in 2020 that it was probably manufactured by Russians. And again, this email, it's got like Russian phrases in it, like putting oil in a fire instead of throwing gas on a fire. And it's, manufactured. Even Durham concluded. Durham, who was doing his best to find crimes, and found only a slight handful and got 2 acquittals against him on the 3 cases that he brought. Even he concluded, and the reason it wasn't published back then, that this evidence was manufactured by the Russians. So they just don't have any evidence that they can ever present that doesn't come from Russia. And so when Comer, first of all, told to pivot over to Epstein, first told Ghislaine Maxwell, when Ghislaine Maxwell demanded that she be given total immunity for her in exchange for her testimony to Congress, Comer said no. And then when he issued the subpoena, I was surprised at first, but then I realized he has to because the committee voted for it, and that's all Democrats and I think 2 or 3 Republicans that aren't Comer. And so he issued these subpoenas, and I'm sure there'll be motions to quash on both the Russia and the Epstein stuff, which are pretty much tied together if you really want to get into it and think about all of the investigations into the money that Senator Wyden has done. with regard to Deutsche Bank transactions in Epstein's name and files being sent to Russia and things like that from Epstein. But regardless of all that, I had done some reporting, I think on July 20th and a follow-up on July 22nd, that FBI analysts at the Information Management Division had been told and instructed to find and flag mentions of Donald Trump in the Epstein files. And there was a master spreadsheet of all of the mentions of Donald Trump, which I did not ask. I didn't FOIA that because they would be redacted under normal FOIA rules because Trump was not charged. And then training videos, instructing.
That's what I can't wait to hear, because when I saw the actual
Hmm.
training videos, Allison, good.
Yeah, and these are videos instructing the people in the Information Management Division at the FBI on how to flag Donald Trump in these files. And so I have, well, back then when I first, before I put that report out, I initiated a FOIA request to get those training videos. And after you give a requisite 10-day period for expedited discovery, or not discovery, but expedited FOIA request, you can sue. So I sued on Saturday after I waited the requisite amount of time to get those videos. And as I told Katie Fang on her show yesterday, it's not necessarily about getting justice or getting the videos themselves. It's about how this administration responds to it. Are they going to say they don't exist? Because I have, I can get affidavits that they do from people who have seen them. Or are they going to say they do exist, but they're covered by privilege, deliberative process privilege, or work product privilege, or something to that effect, which would force them to admit that there are videos that exist that instruct FBI personnel how to flag Trump's name in the Epstein files. Now, we already know through sourced reporting, that Pam Bondi told Donald Trump back in May that he appears in the Epstein files, and we all know that. But it would be nice for to force the government to have to admit that, and so that's what the point of this lawsuit is.
Not only that, Allison, but I think a huge part we could find out with the lawsuit is who implemented that procedure and why and when was that procedure implemented. So for somebody in the FBI to set up a whole training video to flag Donald Trump, that means that Kash Patel and the hierarchy had to have known that Donald Trump was all over the Epstein list, and now they needed to scrub it, and that's what I'm calling it. So somebody had to. So how early did they know? So how long was this cover up going up? This is, I guess, we'll find out if with your lawsuit, because they'll show us, the videos will show us when were they made, by who they were made, who authorized them, and why. Well, because I think that's the real reason. Not that listen, we all understand that there's a scrubbing going on. I mean, I've been reporting on it. You've been reporting on it. There's others. We have sources. Our sources are, might be the same, might be separate. I have no idea, because we're all reporting on some of the same similar stuff, that Donald Trump is rewriting the Epstein history, that Todd Blanche is in there, making up this whole idea of who Maxwell is going to come out and talk about, and putting this whole theory together. And now you have, it's like stage act 3, act 4. Now you have Jamie Comer come into acts. It's like Paul Jamie, and he was just waiting for his time to come in and jump into this mix of things and try and mess things up, and because he is going to now lead the news cycle, because this is what this is all about, is having these hearings on Fox and all these, have the media start having the big names coming up there, because now you're either going to have more conspiracy theories, because, like, for instance, you're either going to have like a Hillary Clinton or Bill Clinton not show up, right? Where they're gonna start then chanting "lock her up" and "lock him up" because of Bannon and all of that, or they're gonna show up and take the fifth. I mean, it's one or the other. And if they do that, then it's also they have as a conspiracy, they're taking a fifth. So it's like a catch-22, no matter how you look at it. And that's why that's part of the plan and what they're doing, and that's sick to watch how they're playing it out in front of the whole world to watch.
Yeah, well, and then, I mean, that's their goal, right, is to take the heat off of Donald Trump. Um, and they fumbled around with that for a while, for a couple months. unable to get it together on how to react. I know I've talked a lot with on here on Substack Live with like Wajahat Ali, and we've talked about, man, if I were a supervillain, there's way better ways to cover this up. They're just doing a really terrible job at it. But I think they're finally getting their ish together, and they're saying, okay, well, we got to drag the Democrats who might appear in the files in front of Congress, and then if they don't, we can use that to say it's all them, and if they do and they take the fifth, then we could say they're clearly guilty, as if anybody on the left cares who it is that's named in the Epstein files. We just want to know. And so that's kind of, I think, their new plan is to divert our attention away from the fact that Donald Trump's not going to testify. We're not going to get a complete accounting from this Department of Justice on the Epstein files. That's why I'm so interested in, like, Ro Khanna, for example, asking for that birthday book. And now the New York Times is reporting today there's another birthday book from his 63rd birthday that has photos of the mansion. You'll have to excuse me. I have a frog in my throat from screaming this weekend. And so, that I think is where the source material that could do the most damage is. And then they also have to contend with Rupert Murdoch and what the Wall Street Journal has. And that's kind of, I think, probably one of the number one sort of unknown variables that they can't control, that they're trying to control. And, we saw today that in the Trump's lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal and Rupert Murdoch and Dow Jones, who owns the Wall Street Journal, that at first Donald Trump was demanding that they get Rupert Murdoch's deposition now within 15 days because he's old and in ill health. And now they've come to an agreement that they won't do any of that until the judge rules on the initial Wall Street Journal motion to dismiss the case. And if the Wall Street Journal wins that, then, I guess we can all say their reporting is accurate, but then it kind of goes away, right?
Right. Right.
So who knows what sort of deal they're making? Who knows what J.D. Vance flew out there to talk to them about 2 days before Wall Street Journal dropped their first story. But,
I think it's also, I think it's, from what I'm hearing from my sources, Allison, great reporting what you're talking about. I was actually, I was going to talk about a little bit later, but this is all, part of, so yeah, so what I'm hearing, it's not 100% confirmed, but a pretty good source that the Wall Street Journal leaker was originally Maxwell and her family. And these were the signs that were being sent to Trump. And that the Wall Street Journal doesn't have a lot. They have a little bit, they have enough, and that's what right now what you're seeing play out is like you said, 100% for it to get buried. If it gets dismissed, like you said, it goes away. It's true, but there's so much, in the media and the story moves on. Nobody's ever going to remember or care about a postcard or but the message was done. The message was sent because what it did is right away it had, he sent, what's his name? His
Todd Blanche.
Todd Blanche, excuse me, I can't forget. Todd Blanche to do the dirty work and start the procedures. They already shifted her right over to a different facility. I mean, 1, 2, 3, it happened really quickly, literally within a week. All of that happened. If you take a look at how that all played out, and now you're seeing the remnants exactly of now it being shut down from, it worked. He came out because as far as the mega base, as far as majority of the people, they only care or remember that the case got shut down. All they can't remember is that Trump went after Rupert Murdoch. He sued him for $10 billion. And, he in their mind, it's like 1 + 1 does not equal 3. Like, what I'm saying to you? Like, it's all over the place. But it's all being set up. And, for some of my subscribers that have been following me, that's some of the things that I've been reporting on, I've been talking about. And my sources have been telling me that this is all theatrics, like literally, especially when it comes to Rupert Murdoch. You have to remember, Allison, you did a lot of reporting on my case. If you remember that when I got arrested, it was the same cast of characters. But back then it played out, except for you had Bill Barr in the mix instead of Pam Bondi. And when I got arrested, Bill Barr well, I was on my way to Vienna to be able to meet with Hunter Biden, the CEO of Burisma, get the laptop. And remember, Sean Hannity and Fox were supposed to do an interview. I met in Fox Studios the night before. We had that whole meeting, and
Mm,
Rudy was supposed to be on the plane with me. And what happened? The day of my arrest, who flies in to Southern District of New York but Bill Barr himself to oversee the arrest, which never happened, unusually. And after that, who does he go have dinner with that night? Rupert
mm,
Murdoch. He has
mhm,
dinner with Rupert Murdoch. Why? And because Fox never covered my arrest. Fox never discussed it. What happened, because they were part. It was part of the cover up. Back then, same players playing out right now. It's all in these cover ups. It's all about to hide the truth. None of these investigations, none of this that has to do with Trump is ever to get to the bottom of the truth, to get to the reality. It's all the opposite. It's all to bury the truth. It's all about to cover up the truth and what's going on. That's why the work, and I want to just take a second because we have a little over 1,000 viewers right now. I want to take a second and say to everybody that's why right now, more than ever, it's important for everybody to go out there and subscribe to Allison, to subscribe to people, independent journalists out there like that are fighting, that are risking it. I mean, she's out there suing the DOJ, risking it. People in Trump's DOJ know who Allison is. I mean, she used to be a veteran. She used to work for the department. She knows, she's a whistleblower. She's out there, even recently. I mean, when you got other journalists out there with like MSNBC and others that are taking our stories that following, and people like Allison here breaking her stories and then trying to take credit for it. We
mm.
saw that, and that's why it sucks. That's why it's so important that our family here on Substack, which is our platform right now, is the only one that's left to be able to grow to such a point, to be able to be strong enough and make our voices loud enough to be able to speak truth to power, to get this information out, to be able to save our democracy, because otherwise we're not going to do it. So, guys, each and every one of you, you know what the objective is: not only to subscribe to each and every one of us, but to go out there and bring 3, 4 more people to this platform, and make sure that you become our megaphones and be an extension of our voices. This will be taped. We will put it out there. Allison will put it out. I will put it out afterwards. Make sure you go spread it wide, far, to everybody you know, to your friends, to your colleagues, to people that need to hear the truth. Because the things that we're telling you, the inside information, the sources, because it's real. This is not a reality show. These are people that are really, I'm under DOJ. I'm still on supervised release. I mean, Donald Trump tries to put me away and lock me up every time he gets a chance. Every time I try to talk over here, he tries
Mm.
to go after my son Aaron. You guys see it, it, because he's out there and he's loud and giving the information. Because so he's trying to shut down. He's already shutting down major media. He's gonna go after independent journalism very soon. He's gonna come. We're gonna come to a time, and the only way we're gonna win is if we're big enough, strong enough, and loud enough to be able to, fight this information. So that's why it's extremely important for each and every one of you to do your job, because we're doing ours. So go ahead, Alison. I just need to give that quick insight for everybody.
Thanks. Yeah, Aaron's doing great work. Aaron Parnas, by the way. If you aren't following him, especially over on TikTok and here on Substack, my Substack's called The Breakdown. It's at MullerSheWrote.com. It's free. All my content is free, and I've got like endless sources in the federal government that who need a voice and reach out to me on a regular basis. So you can have all those alerts. By subscribing for free to my Substack. If you can swing a paid subscription, that's cool. That helps support the work that we do. But uh,
Absolutely. No.
other than that,
And I,
it's
Allison, I tell everybody, we shouldn't, that's extremely important, because the reason why the right has such power is because they support financially and everything. And I talk truth. We're not here sugarcoating. Not everybody could become paid subscriber, but those
right.
that can need to. Each and everybody need to do your job. Somebody could be a paid subscriber. Somebody could be a regular. We don't have, just like Allison said, we don't have no paywalls. Our objective here is to get you the truth, to spread the truth far and wide, to get the message out. But it also
I
doesn't come
want
free.
to I want to
Yeah,
touch on something that you said,
yeah,
Lev,
yeah.
about the Ghislaine Maxwell and the possibility, your sources, that she was leaking the birthday book to the Wall Street Journal. I think that that's a pretty interesting theory, because I could see a scenario where she starts dripping this stuff out and then says, I'll stop if you give me a pardon. And they say, we can't pardon you. And then she says, well, then put me in Club Fed in Texas, or something to that
It goes
something of that nature.
yeah,
But I was the one who broke the story that she was ineligible to be transferred
that's
to
right.
that minimum security prison. She was ineligible, and somebody actually had to go in and give her a waiver and downgrade her sex offender status to what's called a 308. Lesser offender, and that's usually reserved for people who have served. It's never reserved for sex offenders, but
That's
it's
right.
usually reserved for people who maybe like the Theranos lady who maybe she's served 90% of her sentence and she's been on great behavior. Then maybe, and there's spots are very
Deep down
limited,
the right.
and the spots are very limited in those facilities. And so to jump the line like that, everybody I spoke to at Bureau of Prisons was shocked and dismayed and really, really angry. It's very, very out of the ordinary. In fact, it's never happened before. But here she gets this, cushy deal. And is it a prelude to a pardon, or is it the payment for keeping quiet? I mean, I doubt we'll ever know, but we did also learn today that the Department of Justice does have the audio of the interview, the 2-day interview between her and Todd Blanche. But I honestly wouldn't trust anything that this Department of Justice puts out. Their words, where's Comer's subpoena for Jeff Berman? Where's who was the U.S. attorney during the Epstein investigation? Where's the
Bill Barr.
subpoena to get testimony from Maureen Comey, the actual line prosecutor who worked on the case? She's been actually fired. Maybe that was part of the deal between Todd Blanche and Ghislaine Maxwell, who, by the way, isn't just a co-conspirator in the sense that she helped traffic these girls. She was there raping them alongside these other prominent people, including Jeffrey Epstein. She's a known liar. She perjured herself multiple times. So, to give her cover and reward instead of listening to the survivors should be clue number one. But I don't pretend that this administration nor the MAGA people who fuel these conspiracy theories care about the actual survivors. They just want to get a big Democratic name from the Epstein files, as if anybody on the left is going to be sad that we have to, not vote for Bill Clinton again. It's very confusing to me. But it's about the propaganda. It's about the cover up, and there is a great deal of cover up going on at the FBI. In my reporting, we know that there was at least 1,000 people across at least 2 agencies at multiple locations who had to go through these files and look for Trump's name. And at first they objected because they were like, why aren't we redacting the survivors' names and their personally identifiable information? And so everything changed on a daily basis. They rarely got much done because they were waiting for new instructions, because once the new instructions came down, they had to start all over again. And they had 100,000 documents, almost 300,000 pages to go through. So we're going to keep an eye on this. I'm like you said, Lev, I'm interested to see what happens with my lawsuit regarding the training videos, because as you pointed out, that acknowledgement would open up a ton of additional questions and investigations. Who ordered it? When did they order it? What other
Why did they?
names? Right. What other videos are there? What other training videos are there? There were several that were stored on a SharePoint drive embedded in PowerPoint presentations, according to my sources. So here we are, and I just want to also, if anybody is interested in, my lawyer is Kel McClanahan at National Security Counselors, and he is making all these filings and doing all this work and writing all these briefings for me pro bono. And if you want to support his work, you can directly donate to National Security Counselors at nationalsecuritylaw.org/donate. Even $1 or $2 helps, and because of amazing donors and supporters, we were able to raise enough money to cover the cost of the first filing. There's going to be more. So if you're able to, and you can swing it, that's really cool. If not, you can always, like I said, subscribe to my Substack for free, and you will get every single update on the lawsuit. I don't paywall anything. So we're going to go forward with this. I've also filed motions to intervene on behalf of the Trump administration in his quest to unseal grand jury transcripts from the court. And the judges said that they would take our suggestions under advisement. Our suggestions were only redact the survivors' names and personally identifiable information, not what Donald Trump deems pertinent. Don't let him get away with that. And both judges in the Maxwell and Epstein cases have said that they would take that under advisement, although they wouldn't allow me to become a party to the lawsuit, which is fine. I don't feel good about fighting alongside the Trump administration, but if we can, wrest some of these files away from them, that's good. I've also, a couple months ago, filed a FOIA and a lawsuit against Doge for emails about their decimating the federal workforce, and I hope to, in that suit, it's not necessarily again about getting the documents. It's more about getting them to admit that they aren't, or to get a judge to rule that they aren't that the USDS is not part of the executive office of the president and therefore is not subject to FOIA, which would open the floodgates to anyone's FOIA request for Doge materials. That's the point there. So a lot of what I'm doing legally here with my network, my podcast network, and the Daily Beans and MSW Media and national security counselors isn't necessarily about getting the actual documents. It's about getting the government to say what they have and what they won't release so that others, including myself or even you or anybody listening, can file additional FOIA requests for what they admit exists.
And that's so important. And I just want to say, Allison, from one whistleblower to another, God bless you. Thank you for all the work you do. Thank you for risking it, putting it all out there. I mean, everybody out there, I know your time is limited. You got a full day ahead of you. I appreciate you coming on. Love Remembers. We got to do this more often because I think and that's one of the things also out there, people need to really understand that someone like when Allison goes out there as her sources, or I go there's people out there that are really risking a lot more to get us this information, to be able to pass it on, because for whatever reason they're in the position they are, but for some other reasons they want to get this information out. That's why we need each and every one of you to be our extension of our voices. So make sure to go subscribe to Allison. It's for free. You get great content information, and like I say, those of you that can, go the extra mile. Make sure you contribute and make sure you support a lot of different avenues out there. So make sure you do it. Allison, thank you for all the work you do. And let's stay in touch, and I'll give you a call. And if there's some breaking news, we got to do this again.
You need to text more instead of call. I'm Gen X, Lev.
I know. I'm getting there. My son's teaching me. I'm getting there. Listen, I'm
But
an old
I do
dog
want to
learning.
say, also, if you want to read my lawsuit, it's just 8 pages. I'm pretty proud of it. You can get it for free. It's in my latest post on Substack at MullerSheWrote.com. It's right there. You can read it. And I don't know, I'm just kind of, it's interesting. I started in 2017. I got a couple microphones, sat down at my kitchen table and started a podcast about the Mueller investigation. And the chief judge at the time over the grand jury proceedings for the Mueller investigation was Judge Beryl Howell. And we were constantly covering everything that she was doing. And eventually that very first podcast led to a podcast network called MSW Media, Mueller, She Wrote Media. And for MSW Media versus the Department of Justice, we just found out yesterday that my case in the Epstein videos files situation has been assigned to Judge Beryl Howell. So it's kind of this little circle is now complete. Like, you complete me. And I just thought that was an interesting turn of events, and we'll see how it goes. I might get dismissed out of the water. I have no idea what's going to happen, but I had to roll the dice, take a chance, and it's because of supporters and listeners that I'm able to do that. So thank you so much, and Lev, thank you. And if you haven't read Shadow Diplomacy, if you haven't seen the documentary about Lev, From Russia with Lev. You gotta watch it, especially now that all this Russia stuff is bubbling to the surface
Thank you.
again. So thanks, Lev, for having me.
Thank you, and God bless you. Have a great day, Allison. Stay safe, and I'll text more often. We'll do this again. Take
All
care.
right. Well, you can call. It's fine. I just bye, everybody.
No, I will.